name is Nikki Tusher. I'm the Director of Training and Get Outdoors PA with PRPS. Also on our call is BK. He is our Park Maintenance Institute Director, and he will be helping out today with the chat box and letting people in the waiting room. And when we originally scheduled this roundtable, our main purpose was to do a midsummer check-in to see how your facilities are doing, what questions do you have of others in the group, and what can PRPS do for you that we may not be doing at this point if there's some things you need help with. So we're just gonna go ahead and get started. And I'm gonna say everyone at this point is muted or should be muted. Some of you are not, but that's okay. Where are you as far as your summer? How's it going? Are you open? And what issues have you come across so far? And just a reminder, unmute yourself. We'd love to see your faces, because if not, you know, there's only a few on here and I'm just gonna keep staring at them. So turn your video on, let us see who you are. And, tell us where you are with your summer.
Well, we're open. We opened June 13th. We're Bucks County, so we're right outside of Philadelphia. You know, we came up with our plan. Our county in particular had us submit a plan to the county that had to be reviewed before we could open. We did that. They gave us our certificate. We opened. We have, I mean, just to give some background, we have a rather large facility. Our whole facility is roughly 11 acres. We have 3 pools and a lot of usable, I call it usable active space. So we've just been kind of operating as normal. I will say as normal, but we changed a lot of our entry exits, a lot of more, you know, sanitizing stations everywhere. We do hourly cleaning of any of the high touch areas, the restrooms, snack bar, you know, concession area, stuff like that. Even though the guidelines have changed, we've just continued to do it hourly. We just worked it right into the guard rotation because it just worked. It was easy. The guards got used to it, and we didn't see any reason in changing, which our patrons have noticed and have taken, you know, have appreciated. You know, our numbers we're doing really well. Our registrations were actually up, but our members numbers were down. So really what that meant was we got a lot more individual senior memberships as opposed to family. So that was where we saw the big change. So so, you know, we're doing good. We've had to limit entry to our facility only a handful of times, and it's mostly been on the weekends. Oddly enough, mostly Sundays. I don't know why, just the way it works out. Other than that, during the week, we've been able to operate at manageable levels. We have 10 by 10 boxes painted all over our grounds, and people go to their little square and that's their hangout, and 6 feet in between each box. So we did our calculations very conservatively, and we're still, and I didn't even count every acre. I counted what I thought was reasonable. So we're doing good. Weekends, and the couple times we've had to restrict people, it's literally only been for about an hour at most, and it's between 2:30 and 4 o'clock. We've had people wait, and then we just click as people leave. When we get a bunch, then we let some other people in. By 5 o'clock, we're well below what our capacity is, and we move along. So it's a little hectic sometimes, but our staff has been great. And our patrons have been very accommodating. We don't have too many problems with people not understanding what we're doing and why. Occasionally we get the troublemaker that doesn't, you know, and we haven't had to throw anyone out yet. My over-under was definitely that it was going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So there you go. There's my little spiel. I will say, and just because I know someone will probably ask, when we calculated out our number, our max capacity is 400. And I know that sounds big, but I have 11 acres. And like I said, we've only had to restrict entry probably 5 times the whole summer. Other than that, we've probably been around the 200 during the week and stuff like that. So yeah, it gets crazy, it gets busy, but we've been doing really well.
Wonderful. And Andy, that was one of the questions. Kristen had asked, what was your highest number of attendees at the pool? So about 400 is where you cap out?
At one time, I mean, throughout a whole day, you know, we might be in the 500s, but that's not all at one time. That's, you know, in and out. So we've been really, you know, our staff has really been keeping track of that. And then when it does get busy, we clock in and we have someone that clocks out. So we bring in an extra staff person so we really can keep track of that.
Okay.
So yeah, there you go.
And so would your biggest complaint from visitors be when you hit that capacity and they kind of have to wait, or has there been any other concerns expressed to you?
So interestingly enough, so that was my cap, and then we internally cut that down to like say 375 or something. But at that point, we'll if you're a member, you can come in. So we built a little cushion in for members. Okay. To try to avoid that. That's not fair. You know, so really what we do is we hold off dailies. And our members have actually been very appreciative of that. They saw that as a member, they were getting value for their membership. And, you know, our managers usually handle the lines out there and the crowds and explain to them. And literally the longest was probably an hour one day. And just so you know, too, any dailies we have must fill out a entry waiver. I don't care if they come every day. If they're just a daily, they fill out a daily waiver that we keep, and we have them in a box by day. In case we do have to do any contact tracing for the county, we can literally go to the box and say, here's the waivers from, I don't know, Tuesday through Friday or whatever it is, and we just keep them. And at the end of the summer, I guess we'll probably shred them for privacy reasons. But that's it. Members, we have all their information in our system, so we know who's there from member-wise. So,
I believe you shared your plan with us, but would you be able to share the questionnaire that you have them, the daily questionnaire that you have them complete?
The waiver?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send it out. It was, you know, we placed it by the solicitor. We modified it. It's basically almost like a waiver to anyone signed for a program. It just has a lot of COVID or SARS information in there, and yeah, I'll send it to you.
Great, thank you.
People might have to modify it with their own solicitors or boards or whatever, but
absolutely, and that's what we say about any of the documents we share on here. You should always go to your solicitor to make sure that, you know, the language you're using is approved by them and you can move forward in the best way. How about other people on the call? I know, so Kristen mentioned that Carlisle Community Pool is closed for the summer, as well as Philadelphia. I think they closed theirs pretty early. So what are other people doing? Are your pools open? Are you still closed? What kind of feedback have you gotten from your patrons? Jenny, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, we took a different format. I'm not that far from Andy. We are a pool that normally has pretty significant attendance pressure. We have a huge clientele. So our normal, and we have 4 acres and we are an Olympic sized pool. So our normal capacity is over 1,300 as far as bather load. So technically, we're supposed to be able to go to like 650. We cut it to 300 is our max. We went with 1 fit swim in the morning, 2 3-hour increments, and everybody pays $5 per whatever session they're coming to. And we have members. We also have local residents. We're just restricting it to the 2 municipalities that we are more or less connected with. We are not a tax-based pool, so we have to make ends meet. and pay for all of our own upgrades, et cetera. So this year is like a financial disaster, because our normal attendance in any given day, you know, excluding Sundays, which is also our stupid busy day of the week, we'll have 800 to 1,100 people in and out of the pool on a given day in a normal year. So being able to register people as members, we actually refunded all of our memberships this year and went with just this modified idea. The attendance pressure that we normally have, we felt would be untenable. However, after doing it the way we're doing it this year, which is taking $5 from everybody that comes through that front gate, no credit cards because the credit card burden, I think next year we'll go to a modified number of people that we will register. We'll come up with a reduced capacity number that we're comfortable with, assuming that we're going to have some type of restrictions that people are going to feel comfortable with, hopefully not 300. Technically, we can go much higher than 300. Montgomery County, I'm just across the border from Bucks County. Montgomery County does not require that you paint 10-foot lines, but if I did that, it would be a horrific number of people in our facility. So we said it's going to be 300, maybe we'll go to 400 if we think we're comfortable with it. And frankly, we have been to 300 in a session and we don't want to go higher. Because when people come for 3 hours at a pop, they're in the water. Not all of them, but a higher percentage. It's not like you've got a membership and moms don't care if they ever get in the water, and they never get in the water. Now they're getting in the water. So it's a very different scenario. We break even on the weekends. I have like a modified number of what my labor and don't open incremental cost was to be. We break even on that daily cost number on the weekends, but not during the weeks. So we're going to accumulate quite a decent sized deficit from the decision to open, but oh well, you do what you do, and next year hopefully it's better than that. But see, with the attendance pressure that we have at our pool, there was no way to just sell memberships and let it rip like that. There would have been a screaming fest out front. So that was our decision.
I think it's great to see the difference in how these two pools are operating. And that's part of why we wanted to have a call like this, especially, I see in the chat box, even City of Allentown, their pools and spray parks are closed for this season as well. Right. So there's a lot of people on the call who are looking for, what to do when they do reopen. And Ginny, I think you're right. I think even next year, we're going to have some kind of limitations as far as running our facilities. And it's going to be important to take what is learned this year and, that make an impact for next year. I'm sorry, financially, it's not a good year.
Yeah, financially, it's bad. We normally, quote unquote, make money on an operating level, and then we just plow it back into our pool. Last year we spent $200,000 in upgrades, which now I'm going like pumping the brakes. We're not spending any more capital until we see net income. So we just turn it over. What we bring in goes into the project budget. So, but we do make money on a normal year, excluding our capital improvements and major overhauls. So, which is great. Except when you've got that kind of a pool where you can generate that revenue, you're also this year in a really bad situation, because no matter what we did, people were going to be unhappy. And you get a lot of people saying, why don't you have a senior rate? We always get a discount. It's like, I would have a pool full of discounted seniors and that would be it. And, and the kids can't come in. And we also pulled the plug on our own swim team, which is, the 5-year-olds through the 18-year-olds, because they can't social distance, and our coaching staff can't. It's not a thing they can manage. And we also pulled the plug on our high school teams, which was interesting because one of our high school teams was avid to get in, and the other one said, "Please don't do that." So it was very interesting to see the dichotomy between the two organizations and the sensibilities in two different very, very aggressive and competitive high school aquatics programs. It's just nobody has the same opinion on this. And you kind of have to, you know, take the pulse and do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Some other interesting feedback from the chat box that I want to share. Stephen is actually from Texas and has a small city pool, and they're restricting it to 100 people at a time, and they've had to turn people away. Stephen, I would love to hear, and I don't know if you can unmute yourself or put it in the chat box, but tell us a little bit more about that and what kind of reaction, because I know obviously Texas is different than what Pennsylvania or parts of Pennsylvania might be going through. So we'd love to hear your feedback as well.
Okay, so we've opened up, we started opening up with just lap swimming, reserving the lap lanes, reserving our leisure pool, and we slowly grew from that. We actually do open up for rec swim now for in the afternoons. We have 3 bodies of water. We have an 8-lane lap pool, a 65,000-gallon leisure pool, and a 20-person hot tub. So we're, on average right now, we're having about 50 people come a day in the afternoon for rec swim. Lap swim, we're fairly good on keeping that fairly filled. But it's been an interesting struggle with guards because literally I was not able to hire a single guard this year. So I only had to deal with this with all my returning staff and just getting everything going and having that fun stuff. But yeah, it's been fun. We've gotten great feedback. A lot of people actually were very happy when we opened up for lap swimming because they're like, we need this. This is our one outing, because they shut down most of our gyms. In Texas, they did allow water parks to open back up to 50% capacity. So.
Great, thank you for sharing. And that brings up another topic as far as staff. How did everyone handle, I know returning guards are always a bonus, but you know, recertifying, how were you processing your recertification classes? Were you able to get new staff, or did you just rehire, and how has that impacted you? And again, anyone, Gina, Andy, anyone can unmute themselves and speak up. Again, this is a pretty open discussion just to share where we've all been. So whoever wants to go first.
I'll jump in. So we hired, we actually brought on 10 new guards this summer. All these guards were signed up for lifeguarding classes in March and, you know, in February and March, or probably March, April, all which got canceled. One of my swim team coaches happens to be a Red Cross he's a lifeguard instructor. We worked something out with him, and he worked it with Red Cross to figure out how to teach the class, you know, safely and using all their guidelines. He was able to work it out. So we brought on, now granted, it's 10 new young guards, but they're all grew up at our pool. They're all swim team kids. You know, that's going to help me when I start losing my college kids. If I'm losing my college kids this year, I'm not sure what they're doing. But, you know, we lucked out. I mean, like I said, last year we were a little shy, but we were able to bring on 10 new guards, get them certified, get all their background checks, which surprisingly went quicker than I thought this year with the FBI ones especially.
Wow.
And great kids. They're getting to learn. They know a lot of these senior staff from growing up at the pool. So we, knock on wood, we kind of lucked out this year with it. And if they can get through this summer, next year will be a breeze.
Great. And I know the Red Cross, at least American Red Cross, has blended learning, which makes it a bit easier. I did that with the local department here just for their summer camp staff. So the increase in blended learning opportunities has been a huge help. But Ginny, go ahead.
We have a couple of certified instructors on our staff. So they ran a full-on cert class for the kids that got halfway through their high school classes. So we brought on probably 14 new kids that needed certed that were halfway through, but of course we had to do the full program. And then because we have a number of pools in the area that weren't able to open, we picked up some kids from other local pools that were looking for jobs, probably for this summer only, and next summer they'll probably go back to their home pools, which is fine. For our kids this year, they are having, if they're used to our pool, this is a lark of a summer because we don't have our sliding boards enclosed, the double flumes that are all enclosed, so we've shut that down. We normally have inflatable obstacle course wibbits that go across our pool, and it's a big piece of water. So we have those items, and because of the inability to actually disinfect them, which isn't obviously throwing chlorinated water on them, we did not install them. And the attendance numbers are so low that the kids who are with us this year for their first year have no clue what our pool looks like on a regular basis. It's super busy. It's, largely great patrons, but it's super busy. And, instead they're sitting outside the ladies' room and the men's room, taking a head count of who's going in because we limit the numbers in the restrooms as well. And it's a weird year for everybody. They have obviously more non-lifeguard type activities going on, but next year it will be a wake-up call if we're somewhat back to normal for these kids.
It's like a good training year for them to learn things before.
Right. They'll be shell-shocked in a normal year because it's just that busy. But
yeah, I'm just going to go back to the chat box real quick. Kristen mentioned that staffing was a major challenge for them. She contacted the Department of Health regarding state regulations limiting staff trainings to be done socially distant, and they said they totally missed that when it came out and that public pools could be open. She asked for an allowance or further clarification, and they provided none. The local Red Cross classes were canceled and still have not been offered. One of the questions is, how were skills review sessions done? And at least for the class I taught, which was not lifeguarding, so if someone else did a lifeguarding class, that'd be helpful. But I did a traditional first aid and CPR for summer camp staff. They took the blended learning online, and then I went to the department's office, and they have a large conference room. And while I had a mask on, I had the individual do their skills in front of me. Now, the sanitation of the Annies and the AED trainer was done in between every person. So I did skills on a one-on-one basis. I didn't have the group come in all at once. I did them one-on-one. I did skills, I sanitized, and then about 15 minutes later, the other person would come in. Now, obviously, lifeguarding is more hands-on, so I don't know if anyone can speak up to the actual skills portion of that class.
For the actual skills portion of the lifeguard class, we kept it with same partners always. We also didn't do it until we were in green because we waited to open until July 1st. So and we didn't want to do a training in yellow. We just didn't want the risk of that. So we waited until we were in green. The last week before we opened is when we did our training. And we restricted who partnered with whom. We had some siblings in the group, and some of them we asked their siblings because they're on our staff to show up and be their partners. And frankly, a lot of these kids swim together heavily with the local high schools. So it's not like they're not exposed to one another. They are, not always in the most constructive way. I'm not sure how to say that correctly, but they're you know, you hear the stories coming out of some of the training programs and you just want to bang your head against the wall. Because everything that you're doing, you're going, how, you know, okay, well, you're involved in this, so separate as best you can when you're in that program. But so that's how we did it. As far as how they did like the CPR and the rest of it, I wasn't there for that portion, but I was there for some of the other portions of their training. And they just isolated the groups and kept them to the same partners and sanitized if they were using equipment in between. So
great, thank you. And as far as I know, and maybe it depends on what county and what Red Cross you're using, but the one question is, under the impression that the courses were on hold, I think you know, with the blended learning, that allowed for a greater opportunity to provide these certifications. I can reach out to some other instructors that I know to see how they did their classes, and I can include them in the follow-up notes with this email, or with our email as well. So just as a reminder, if you haven't put your name and email address in the chat box, please do. We'll make sure you get the recording and any notes, and you know, if Andy is able to send out his waiver, we'll include that as well, to make sure that we get all the good information we need to get out to people. Anyone else have some feedback before I ask my next question of how their pools are doing? Are you open? How are you managing sanitation, and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'll jump in here real quick. We opened on June 22nd because our pool was actually, we had some construction going on when Wolf announced that we could open. So it took us a while to get that finished, the pool painted and filled. So far, so good. We were very lucky with staffing because some of our experienced guards who were planning on doing internships this summer weren't able to, so they came back to us. And we did have one guard quit on us. She wasn't feeling well. We asked her to get tested. She hem-hawed around, and finally she ended up quitting, and we don't know what happened, but we were able to get another guard part-time from a pool that hadn't opened. So that worked out. Staffing-wise, we've been pretty good. Another local pool has had cases, had to shut down. We have so far not had anything. It's in our community. We know it's in our high school grouping of kids, but luckily our kids have not been hanging out with those kids. So far so good, like I said. We are shutting down. Originally we did time slots for about the first 3 to 4 weeks. We did time slots 11 to 2, closed down for half an hour, did 2:30 to 5:30, closed down for half an hour, went 6 to 8. And we sanitized in those 2 half-hour periods. And we were finding that we're about at 55% of our normal memberships this year. We were finding that we weren't even at what numbers we had set on the time slots. So we decided to disband those and just go with the flow. And so now what we do is at 2 and at 5:30, we do shut down. We don't clear the grounds. We just clear the pool, and all staff sanitizes for as long as it takes. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to do all commonly touched surfaces. And we figure it helps our concession stand, and it gives people time out of the water to reconnect and get their kids together. And if they want to leave, fine. And then as soon as the guards are back up on their chairs, everybody comes back in the water.
Great.
We did.
Where are you located?
Berks County.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We instituted an adult swim twice a day this year for 15 minutes, which we had never ever done before, and it's gone over very well. We also we have a 100-year-old pool that was originally part of an amusement park, and it's built like a saucer. So we have shallow around the whole outside, deep in the center. And we sectioned off one of our shallow sections for adults only, which we're going to continue in future years because it's been a big hit with everybody. But I think the adults appreciate not being around the little kids and not knowing what everybody else has. But you know, we keep reminding people to socially distance and to wear masks, and we're still fighting those battles. I think we announce it, we put it on Facebook, and we've had one person who lived in Japan who was used to wearing masks, like be in our face all the time. And then we've had some people who refuse, they think it's all a hoax and a conspiracy, and they've refused to wear masks, and we have everything in between. So most everybody's been really good.
Great. Sarah in the chat box mentions that they close between the different type of swimming as well. So if they have a fitness swim, an adult swim, family swim, swim lessons, they do a 15-minute shutdown to sanitize. So that seems very popular. And from that, I'm going to ask, how many of you are doing swim lessons? I know we've shut down some swim teams, but swim lessons? Yep, Sharon. And has that changed at all this year from previous years, the way you're providing those smaller groups? I know they're always limited anyway, but.
Right, we max out at 8 people per class, and we are probably running, we didn't start them right away. We started them after the 4th of July. Normally we start them in mid-June, and we do private and group lessons, and our lessons have been strong this year.
Good. And Megan Krasinski also said yes, they are doing swim lessons. The guards wear face shields, and they take 6 per group. normally, now they're taking 3. So I know we all know swim lessons are very important, and that was, I know, a tough decision for this year as well. On top of that, and again, if you aren't able to use your microphone, please add them in the chat box. But I know when I managed a pool in the past, and our local pool here also did special events, dive-in movies, they did, I know Andy's triathlon. Is anyone doing any kind of special event, or are you just totally nixing that for this year?
We canceled all of our like theme day, theme days and things like that. We just, on top of everything that else that the guards were doing, and just trying to kind of stay, we're not trying to go right to the line. So we're really, like I said, we're overly cautious on the cleaning. It's like every hour we close the bathrooms, we spray everything down. We found we experimented with some pretty different things, like basically the little handheld pump sprayers. We bought some, got a bunch of cleaner that can dilute. We had a backpack sprayer that you plugged in and had a fan and everything. We thought it was great. I thought it was great. After about the first week, it was just too cumbersome. It was, you had to plug it in. There was a lot of things. He couldn't move around with it. We went to these pump sprayers. They're about, I don't know, they're like this big, 54 ounces. Diluted. The guards can get to all the nooks and crannies. They go in, we close the bathrooms, they sanitize all the handles, they go around, they hit everything real easy, and that's been great. So, that's kind of it. But special events and things, we just, and lessons as well, we just didn't think it was right to try to ramp that all up. And we haven't really had too many complaints. Even our swim team, they canceled their season for the most part. They did run a clinic. We worked it out, and they have their team split into Monday, Wednesday, Friday groups, Tuesday, Thursday. So groups are always the same. The instructors that come on each day are the same. So there's really not a lot of crossing going on there. But they just canceled their whole season, so we don't have like swim meets or anything like that going on. We're just going to try to get through this summer, not add any more stress or anxiety to our staff or our patrons. We have a lot of older senior patrons that, for us, luckily use our one pool is kind of the senior pool. But they're worried. They don't want to see too much crowds, and so we're just taking this summer as it is, and at this point, we're not going to add lessons or dive-in movies or anything like that.
Well, and that also goes back to, Ginny, I think you mentioned it, like the Wibbit. Some facilities have climbing walls. I mean, I know a lot of slides and Wibbits are not being used. Are there other amenities that your pools have that you're not using? Something like a climbing wall or anything else? Megan says that their slides and rock wall are open. So I guess it depends on your facility. There's another chat about swim lessons as well. Sarah said that they have 4 in class. They're using one way in and out. The staff obviously wear masks, and they only allow 1 adult per student. So that's some good information as well.
Our slide's open too, but the county official, when we asked her about it, she said, yeah, it's fine. And then we have climbing, and we spray that down. That's one of our hourly cleaning things. But she just felt with the chlorinated water and being exposed to the sun that wasn't a huge concern of hers. And if it wasn't a huge concern of hers, we were like, okay, but we still sanitize it every hour.
Andy, is your slide an enclosed slide or an open slide?
It's enclosed, and she said as long as the water's running through. I mean, this was our rep from Bucks.
Right.
But we spray all the netting, and we spray like where they touch and everything. And again, it doesn't get a ton of use. So we kept that open, but we closed our little aqua zip thing because that just was, she didn't want that to be open. So we said, okay, fine. That breaks a lot in the summer anyway. And even on a non-COVID summer, my staff hates it. So that wasn't terrible.
For the cleaning supplies you're using, you talked about the little handheld almost tanks. If anyone has stuff that they're using successfully and want to share a link with the group, you can either email me or put it in the chat box, and we'll make sure everyone gets it. I will put my email address in the chat box now so people have it. And I did want to read, there is, oh, let's make sure I actually put my right email address in there for everyone. Sharon mentioned they canceled all 4th of July events. They usually host a Teachers in Park. They're closing that as well. Swim teams in Berks County are canceled for the season. Close their game room. They don't hand out basically equipment. So yeah, it seems like a lot of special events are canceled, and that makes sense. I mean, even general park and rec departments, their bigger summer events aren't being as successful with events this year. Great question, BK. Has anyone tried developing a new stream of revenue, or are they looking for changes for next year? Ginny, I know you said that you're looking at maybe making an adjustment for next year, but I know some of you had mentioned concession stands. Are you doing your traditional concession stands, or are you bringing in food trucks? So what are some new revenue stream ideas you're thinking of, and how are you handling your concessions this year, or maybe looking at changing for next year?
I'll go with our concession stand. It is kind of an open air. It's like a four garage door open. She had to submit a plan to our county as well, from a food service type thing. And realistically, she'd be like a takeout play. It was all takeout. So we used to have seating inside of the open area. All the tables were removed. We have alleyways and footprints, and you come in one way, you go out the other way. You pick up, you go. She's been doing well, and again in PA now they've let outside dining. I mean, but we're still not considering that outside dining. You know, it's working this summer. She's pretty stressed out as it is with a lot of the regulations. As a food vendor, having a horrible time getting supplies and stuff. She said that's really been tough for her. Just the supply chain for those like Coke and Pepsi, I mean, has been really tough. So I'm not putting any more stress on her as far as that. But it's take your stuff, go back to your little square, and it's been working. So we're not gonna add anything at this point in the game. I mean, we're going into August now. August will start to slow down, and you know, that's about it. So we're not really going to change much as far as adding anything new this year, especially.
Anyone else? Well, while you're thinking, one question I have is, I know in most areas, kids plan on going back to school. And that means elementary through high school. I'm not even touching on college right now. But in some areas, they're pushing more of a virtual-based school. So are you thinking about ending your swim season around the holiday, or are you thinking it could be extended because you might be able to secure patrons and your staff may still be available?
We might extend a couple weekends after Labor Day. We might go maybe 3 weekends after Labor Day, but I'm not going to go weekdays I'm not going to put that out, but we may add a couple weekends because I will have staff around on the weekends. I might have some of my college kids and my high school kids. But even with school starting virtually, I think weekdays will be tough because they're going to have a whole new learning environment and things like that. So we're thinking about it. I'm polling my staff right now to see who is even going to be available to add maybe 3 weekends in September.
Great.
We at this point have no plans to stay open longer than Labor Day, our traditional Labor Day. Every year we get a lot of pushback from homeschooling parents and nursery school parents that don't get it. But all of our managers are teachers, and they quickly become unavailable, and even on weekends they got a lot going on starting September. So
yep, great.
Yeah, same here. We've had people ask us all the time to stay open later or weekends, and we can't with our sports. They don't understand that we have college kids and high school kids that are actively involved in things, and that includes weekends. So we've told everybody from the get-go, even Labor Day is later this year, being September 7th anyway.
Right.
So at least we know we're going to be covered through Labor Day, because a lot of times we're a little dicey because we lose so many guards to sports once it starts up the beginning or the middle of April, listen to me, the middle of August, and all our kids go back to college. But we know we'll be fine this year because kids will either be home, and some of our kids who go to Penn State said if all their classes are online, they're just going to stay home until after Labor Day and then go up to their apartments. That's what they're planning on. So we should be fine staff-wise until then. I just saw somebody said doggy days too. We always hold a dog swim. We close on Monday of Labor Day, and then that following Saturday we have a dog swim. And the one thing somebody just brought up, one of our board members runs the food bank in Berks County, and so we normally ask for donations for pet food and pet supplies and things like that. This year I think we're going to ask for not only pet food but also people food.
Great. That's a great idea. Dog days are one of my favorite. I don't swim, so I know you all run pools, sorry, but I love dog days. That's my favorite thing to see at a pool, and it's good that you can still hold it. I know Megan mentioned, Megan Krasinski said they are not, because it's a special event, so they're not doing that this year. So at this point, what other feedback questions do you have? You know, PRPS is looking at scheduling some future webinars, and we will do an end of summer follow-up roundtable. But what can PRPS do for you, or what questions do you have for the group? I know we haven't heard from everyone, but we still may have some people chiming in.
I just have a question. I got in late, about, I don't know, 20 after 11, so I don't know what was covered before I got in. Has anyone had employees that tested positive?
Not yet.
We have not, but we had a couple employees that after they read or blackballed a couple states that were going on vacation to, let's say, North Carolina, Florida, or something like that. We took them. I mean, we put it out there, and all our staff was pretty honest with us. They told us they were going. We pulled them off the schedule for at least the first 7 days after they got back. You know, I know it says 14, but talking to a lot of players, if they don't have any symptoms or anything, but we've pulled them off the schedule, and we told them ahead of time, if you go to one of these states, understand you're going to lose hours. You know, we're not putting you on the schedule. And the staff has been really understanding. I have to say I'm pretty impressed with even our younger staff on the responsibility they've taken. Like, some of the staff said, well, I have my grandparents live with us, so we're really being careful. And they understood the ramifications of their actions and how it could affect their friends and family. So, you know, it's been tough, but no one's tested positive. And anybody that traveled, we did pull off the schedule and had them monitor and stuff.
There's a few things in the chat box. Sarah, and I'm not going to say your last name. I don't want to say it wrong. I don't know if you can unmute yourself, but you had mentioned you had 2 tests positive and 4 that quarantined with symptoms, but didn't get tested. If you have the ability to unmute yourself and tell us a little bit more about that, that would be great.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can, yes.
Okay. I'm on I have to do a phone because my computer doesn't have the microphone, doesn't let me talk into it. So, okay, and I've never picked up the phone, so hooray. Yeah, so my name is Sarah Hageman, and I'm in Texas. And yeah, we had, right after the 4th of July, we had 2 staff come down with some symptoms. And then, of course, they had worked like the day before or whatever, and then sent me a message the next day that they weren't feeling well. And so they went and got tested. We, of course, pulled them off the schedule, and then we had to go through and look at like all the staff that they worked with in that couple of days. So it really was just like a big explosion right after 4th of July. And it was right before 4th of July, it was end of June. And they were 2 separate exposures that didn't occur here. They had attended, like, it was a graduation party that we later found out a couple days later that one of their friends had tested positive. and they had been at that graduation party. And then we had another employee, the other one attended a small party that same weekend and then had symptoms. So we had 22 staff that were potentially exposed, but because we've all been in masks, and so we felt pretty confident that, we didn't need to close or anything like that. But I spent, my July 4th day when I was here going through 22, calling 22 people and letting them know, hey, this happened. No one else got sick from them. We later found out, I mentioned in the chat, that we had 4 other staff that ended up displaying symptoms that were outside of being exposed, working with those people. They didn't work with them, but found out that someone close to them had tested positive. So they didn't choose to go get tested. One went in, thought she had strep throat. They swabbed her for strep, but they didn't think she had COVID, so they didn't even test her for COVID, which I thought was odd. And so those 4 ended up just quarantining for the 14 days. And so we've made it over that hump, thank goodness. But we were at a point where we were considering closing more because I ended up having, 6, 7 staff come off of schedule within a week's time. And so we were, more worried about that than we were about any risk here at work. So it went well. And I was concerned because I had conversations with the 2 that did test positive and one that displayed the similar symptoms, but didn't test, all in that, like, their last day of work. But we were, again, masked and, not 6 feet apart, but about 3 feet apart. And so, I went through a little bit of a worry, but we all ended up fine. So it was a little touch and go, but we're hoping now that we've kind of made it past that big, it's not over. Obviously, we know it's not over, but at least it was, all happened at once. So
thank you so much for sharing, Jenny.
Yeah.
A question for Sarah. How did you handle the privacy issues with regard to the names of the people that were quarantining or suspected positive or positive with the rest of your staff?
Well, they came off the schedule, right? I started having to fill the schedule with those staff members, or, with people having to go into those spots. So
Right.
Honestly, there wasn't a lot of privacy. They all talk, their social media fiends, all of that stuff. So we tried the best that we could to keep it, as confidential as possible. But it was not a secret to who were the ones that, got sick or whatever. But everyone has, everyone was fine. We had one situation where a parent of one of my leads actually emailed our city hall, our mayor, and was concerned, and after her son had just traveled to Florida, which is the one we put on quarantine when he returned, so it was kind of ironic. But anyway, so she had sent an email to our mayor concerned, and so one thing we did end up doing is we had a small break room that we were only allowing a couple employees to break in anyways, and they were, that there was only 2 chairs, and they were marked 6 feet apart, that we put tape on the ground, and, as far as I know, they stayed, at least every time I went in there, the chairs were separate. But she was concerned about that, so we ended up taking that break room away and ended up moving them into our party rooms because we don't have birthday parties right now. So we just went ahead and moved them into that space, and that's where we started when we reopened. And then when things seemed to get manageable and everything, we moved them back into their old break room and we started doing parties. Well, then all that got ripped away since, I'm in Texas and you guys know what's going on in Texas. So, so we ended up moving them back into a bigger break room. But yeah, it wasn't a problem. No one was like, oh my gosh, so-and-so this, or, everyone handled it really well.
If your staff's like everybody else's, they all know everything before any of us do anyway. They all hang out.
Yeah.
They,
yeah, exactly.
They're all friends and things like that. But we don't even have a break room. We took our break room offline, and our guards are all outside in like
ours.
Call it a circle, but they have their chairs and they're outside. We have them outside, and they really only go into. We closed our game room, and that became our manager's office and the place where we store all the furniture we didn't use this year. So that they do have a big room that they can get out, outside, out of the public eye if they want to eat or something, but it's definitely big enough that they're not near each other.
That's what we did. We socially distanced what few picnic tables we did leave out in a pavilion for our guards. and roped it off. So it's right next to their guard room, which is teeny tiny. And it's where the refrigerator is. So they store all their gear in the room, but then they have like 6 picnic tables that they can break at and stay a good distance apart. And that's worked out okay.
Yeah.
Great. What other questions do we have for the group? And again, you can put them in the chat box or you can unmute yourself.
I'm curious, we are a membership only pool, but we started allowing guests a couple weeks ago because we figured at that point everybody had joined, things in the area were kind of stable. So I'm just curious if any other pools have allowed guests this year that you normally allow guests, but maybe you didn't, because I know a lot of the local pools are a lot smaller than we are. And many of them said that they aren't allowing guests at all this year.
So Sharon, that goes to what we did with dailies and guests. If you come in, you fill out a waiver every time. So if someone brought a guest and if they came as a guest of a member, that guest must fill out that waiver. 1, so we know who it is, and 2, that they understand whatever the waiver says. I'll be honest, I don't know what it says, the whole thing, but it says you won't hold us responsible, blah, 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 blah. So we did allow them, but yes, they do have to sign the waiver if they come with a friend every time. And we track it that way.
We were going to go, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just, we're in Bucks County as well, Menlo. And then I was talking to Ashton, she's in Quakertown. Menlo gets a lot of people from Philly, and a lot of our residents were concerned that, you know, Philly is a hot zone, as you all know. But we have not limited any dailies or guests. The only thing we have a problem with is just people not wearing their mask who aren't from the area. You know, we had a grandmom visit from New York. We had a family yesterday from Florida. But, you know, we're not discriminating. Anybody can come. I know Ashton, I don't think she's on the call. They were having some issues with capacity, so they only limited it to their school district. And she said members were very happy. So, but we haven't had any issues. But again, if Philly went back to red, I was going to suggest that, you know, we not accept from those zip codes. But we have not had a problem with out of you know, municipality guests.
All right, we have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and give my last reminder. Put your name and email address in the chat box. If you haven't, we'll make sure you get a copy of the recording, and there's some great information in the chat box. If you have any other questions, now's the time to ask them. Again, PRPS will schedule another roundtable. We're looking at probably late September, once pools are closed, to do a final, you know, did you survive and lessons learned kind of wrap up, because we think it will be important for planning for next year. And at that roundtable, we'll probably talk about fall swim lessons in school districts, because I know locally our school district isn't really wanting to let outside groups in. So that'll be a conversation that we have at that roundtable too. But at this point in time, I'm going to ask for any last questions, or if you've had a positive story that's happened because your pool is open, let us know that too, because, you know, a lot of times on the roundtables we talk about the difficult things, but we would love to hear the good things that are happening as well.
I will say that a lot of our members have responded to us on our Facebook post that they are so thankful that we are open this summer, that it's giving their kids some bit of normalcy in the crazy world that we live in right now. So a lot of people are very appreciative. Even people in the beginning when we did the time slot, some were annoyed, but some were very thankful that we were watching our numbers and really like trying to do the right thing. And we were. Unfortunately now, like, we see people who are congregating together in the pool more than they probably should. But to me, I'm looking at that as, you know, that's their choice. And we can remind them till the cows come home and they still may not want to do it. So, you know, what are we going to do? But no, we've had a lot of positive feedback for opening this year. I'm glad we did it.
We had the same, and the same with the people with their kids, but even some of the seniors who used our pool for exercise. Like we have a very solid, like they come in, swim their laps or walk, you know, do lane walking and things like that. So we've seen a big positive response to us being open. And again, some of the same issues where people, you know, haven't been hauled about things, but overall in general, you know, we've seen a very positive response to us being open, and they all are, you know, see what we're doing and have noticed it. We get a lot of compliments on what we're doing and a lot of thank yous, which, you know, I wasn't really sure how that was going to go when this summer started, but surprisingly, you know, they haven't been beating up on the staff too much. And, you know, as much as it's stressful and everything like that, 7 days a week, you know, I think I'm glad we did it. And I think we took the time to come up with a good plan and do it well.
Great. Well, I just want to remind everyone that July is National Park and Recreation Month, and we did celebrate Park and Recreation Professionals Day just a week or two ago. So thank you all for what you do. You are making your communities even better places to live in, and I know your constituents thank you, and PRPS thanks you. So if there's nothing else, we're going to go ahead and end it. We will see you in September, and I wish you the best of luck with the rest of your summer.
Thank you.
Thanks.